Okay, so this is sort of just gonna be a rant on 1.15 in general. So I want to make this video because I feel like people have a very good understanding of what basically the meta and what pace is like in 1.16, but not really in 1.15. Kind of want to compare Insomniac and Doubleday, specifically why you shouldn't play Insomniac in most cases. I also sort of want to talk about what the future of the category is like because Entricus just got a 1308 and entered today. So I feel like the double A limit is approaching, and kind of just want to speculate about what's going to be the future after that for sub 14 and sub 13 and stuff. Um, yeah, so this is the list. This is a list I compiled of all the sub 20s in the category. Um, and actually, before I say this, I sort of want to divide this discussion up into looking at times between 14 and 20 minutes, and then looking at times faster than 14 minutes, which is the double day limit. Um, right. So one thing I kind of want to show is that if you look at this, Insomniac I has 10 sub 20s and 3 sub 18s, and Doug, Antricus, Pingu, and I all individually have more sub 20s, more sub 18s, and more sub 17s than Insomniac as a whole. And keep in mind, Insomniac has been the strat for 10 months. Um, and like either Antricus or Doug have gotten more sub 20s and sub 18s than that in like the past month of their grinding. So yeah, a lot of people say that Insomniac could be better if more people played it. But if you look at individual runners, I think it's pretty obvious that Double Days loads better for sub 20s and sub 18s. Um, People talk about playing Insomniac with Pirate. Um, Kind of want to talk about that too, since I mean, resetting for coastals can be a bit intimidating. In my opinion, it's not too hard, since like resetting for coastals takes incredibly little mental energy. Like you can literally just reset for them while you're watching something or doing work even. Whereas in Insomniac, you have to constantly pay attention, even if you're just pressing W in the boat. Um, Also, if you look at 1.16, you're always like checking for map lists or looking around, mining wood or wherever. Um, but yeah, if you want to do Insomniac and Pirate just for fun, then that's totally okay. Um, I think playing for fun is underrated, and if you want to do that, that's really good. Um, but what sort of just want to say is that Pirate sucks for world record, or just for a good time in general. I also have Pirate up here for 14 and 1.15, which has 10 sub 20s together. Um, Interestingly, Johans has sub 18 with Pirate, which I find kind of funny. But yeah, Pirate is basically limited to a 1230 I throw, which I guess I'll talk about in a bit, but 1230 is pretty awful for world record. Johans almost got a really good time. He got screwed by Dragon, but he entered at 1447 with Pirate because he got pretty much a floor the Pirate floor I throw time, which is around 1230, and he got a really close stronghold. But yeah, in general, you shouldn't be playing for Pirate if you're even like hoping for sub 18 or world record. It's just not good in general. Um, right, what I'm gonna talk about now. Um, right, so for times between 14 and 20 minutes, you should not think of doing Insomniac at all. I feel like if you're not going for world record, um, just playing casually or for combined, um, this is also a reason why you shouldn't play Insomniac. Because I feel like Insomniac is only worth it for times lower than 14 minutes. And if you're going for time lower than 14 minutes, you're almost certainly going for a world record because it's going to be an absurd amount of effort. If you're just playing casually, there's no reason to put yourself through like 100, 200,000 resets for sub 14. Yeah, the difficulty gap between a sub 14 and sub 15 is ridiculous. Like sub 15 and sub 16 is pretty reasonable now, but sub 14 is gonna be so much harder. The gap between, or the difference between getting a sub 14 and sub 15 is probably equivalent to the difference between sub 15 and like sub 20 or sub 19 or whatever. It's absurd. Um, yeah, if you're for top runners, you can generally get a sub 20 every 4,000 resets, a sub 18 every say 15, 20,000, and sub 16 or at least a sub 16 a bull seed, sub 15 a bull seed is probably every 50k resets or something. Whereas I would guess a sub 14 seed is every 300, 400,000 resets, which is even for a chance of sub 14, because you can't use any sort of day two strat. Um, yeah, so I guess I can talk about eye throws, which is I think a pretty important concept. Um, so this is a spreadsheet that I've used to keep track of my resets, and I also looked at Doug's resets for 2 days. And we use eye throws in 115 because the strategies you use can have like wildly different ways of getting to eye throws. Like in insomniac, you throw an eye after you leave another. On half of double A runs, you do that, but on the other half, you throw an eye after a monument, after you loot a monument. Um, and pirate runs, you throw an eye after you finish your village. So yeah, very different ways of getting to eye throws. So that's why we standardize them. Um, there's also the big problem that um, the eye throw can be a lot different if it's from closer or farther away from the origin. Ideally, you want to throw it around 1,000 blocks out, which is if you average out all the eye throw times on the leaderboard, that's pretty much how it works out. Um, and I made this plot a while ago, so it's about outdated. But if you plot the eye to end split, which is basically the time between you throw your eye and you enter your end, I plot that against the distance from your origin, you get a downward trend, which is to be expected. Um, and from this, you can sort of get a metric for um, basically dealing with what if you throw an eye from really close to the origin versus really far. But when what it works out to is every 100 blocks you are further out, that's equivalent to an eye throw that's around 7 seconds faster. Um, right, so I guess we can look at one of these. Um, my PB eye throw was 1002, but only 550 from the origin. So when you adjust that, that becomes 1033. Um, and for something really far out, like take Marco's run, 1300 from the origin. I'm basically adjusting this to what it'd be like if you threw it eye from 1,000. I think the average of this data set is like 950 or something. Um, that's 21 seconds. So your his eye throw was like 1250 or something. So that'll get adjusted to 1230. So yeah, that's a pretty useful way to think about throw an eye. If you compare this to Insomniac, it's actually more similar than you might think. Um, both Double Day runs and Insomniac runs push cores in pretty similar ways, so you'll end up being similar distances from the origin, usually around 1,000 out. Um, right, and there's also the problem between when you compare Double Day eye throws and Insomniac eye throws, that in Double Day you have to dock and you can't use dolphins. Um, but with the recent colon skip tech, I've made a video on that just today. Um, that basically makes the time for restocks a lot smaller. So instead of 15, 20 seconds for restock, you only have to spend around 5 seconds in total doing the restock. But since dolphin travel is still a big advantage in Insomniac, I'd say on a good pace run with a decent stronghold, um, you'll lose maybe 5 to 15 seconds on a double day run versus Insomniac. Um, before cooldown skip tech, that would have been a bit larger, but um, as it is, it's actually pretty easy to compare Insomniac eye throws with double day eye throws. There's also the issue that if you hit land with insomniac, um, if you hit land, then you'll be pace locked. So if you throw if you throw an eye, it goes immediately towards land, then you have to wait a bit. Um, but which is why I think this or looking at eye throws and making judgments with them is probably more useful for world record runs. Um, if you look at a normal insomniac eye throw or standard insomniac eye throw, it's around 10, 11, 12 minutes. Then you'll most likely need an ocean exposed stronghold for that to world record. Same for double day. So yeah, pretty much always consider the case when you get pretty much playing for a close ocean exposed stronghold. Right. So why am I talking about that? Um, Basically, one of the best ways to like judge a strategy is to look at how often it gets on pace. Um, like Insomniac was advertised as sort of like since it was first thought up in March of last year, which is almost a year ago. Um, what you need to get or when you're playing for a really good time, you want to be on good pace multiple times. Um, and so if you want to judge a strategy, you have to look at how often it gets on good pace. Um, so yeah, so as of right now, um, if you want to go for world record for pretty much both double day and insomniac, you want to go for sub 12 eye throws. Um, 12xx has a very small chance of getting record, but you need insane stronghold, and it's not worth playing for 12xx. Um, right, so if you look at this data set, which is from my runs in November, um, I have 11 sub 12s, 4 sub 11s, and 1 sub 10. Um, for this set, 2 days of Doug's runs in January, there's 6 sub 12s, 3 sub 11s, and no sub 10s, but he got pretty close to sub 10 twice. Yeah, so and this is only in 2 days. Um, I bring this up because if we look at what insomniac eye throws are like, sub 12 is actually much rarer than in double day. Um, as far as I know, the fastest insomniac eye throw is sub 11. I think it's happened twice. Corba's gotten 10:30, and I think Johans has also gotten a similar time, around 10:30. Um, and it's just right here, 2 days of Doug's resets. He's gotten 3 sub 11 eye throws, including 3 times that are faster than the fastest insomniac eye throw. Um, so yeah, if you want to talk about insomniac getting sub 15 or sub 14, even sub 13, um, or if you're Duncan and want insomniac to get sub 9, you want to look at how often it gets on good pace because if you're talking about a god insomniac seed, um, that god insomniac seed is not just going to be rolled one time. You need to roll multiple good eye throws. Um, if you want to beat the double day floor time 14 minutes with insomniac, you would want to I would say consistently throw an eye sub 10, which has not happened. Like maybe you could say insomniac will consistently throw an eye sub 12, but that is very far off from what you would want for sub 14. Um, and yeah, these two data sets don't give justice to um, double eye throws. There's been, as far as I know, four or five sub 9 eye throws in double day. Um, the fastest, if you use this method, is Ontricus's 838, um, which is 900 out, 900 out, and um, the fastest just in terms of time is his 818, but that's 600 out, and I think it when you adjust that for distance, it's slower than the other one. But yeah, Ontricus has 2 sub 9s, I have 1, and Pingu has 2. Um, right, and sub 10s are pretty common nowadays for double day. Um, yeah, Doug and Ontricus have both been able to consistently get sub 10. Ontricus gets a ton. Like a lot of his runs are sub 10 high throws, and that is quite a bit better than what insomniac has been able to achieve. Um, right. I guess we can compare paces too. Um, this over here is a list of all the sub 15 endenters with double day. If you're looking at like sub 15 portal rooms or just above the stronghold, it's gonna be way more here. And just for reference, the Fastens Insomniac endenter is still Corvus 1532 in his record. Um, so yeah, just based on paces, going for times between 14 and 20 minutes, double day is ridiculously good at getting sub 15 endenters. The stuff that's not on here is Sichi back in June of last year, I think, was one third above the stronghold, above the ocean exposed stronghold, and I think it would have entered around 1250. Um, and Doug and I have both been above the stronghold at 1212 with only 8 eyes. Can't really count that, but it's still something. I think Max has a low 13 portal room, and yeah, so those roughly 6 paces to be sub 14 and enter. Yes, I don't think Insomniac has ever had pace better than 1530, 1532 by Cord. Johans had a sub 14 and enter with Insomniac. I'm sub 14 dig down with Insomniac. Um, which happens a lot in double day. Like uh, I I would say I would think a couple of these are sub 14 dig downs. Not too sure about that. Right. Just gonna talk about Insomniac as a strategy in general. The main problem with Insomniac is that you backload so much of the RNG. Like, if you want a world recordable seed, um, you'll be able to look through so many more seeds with Double Day. Um, since being able to front load your village at spawn is huge. Insomniac, it's so much rarer to find the village later on in the run. Um, Oh yeah, I forgot to mention this at the beginning, but I also sort of wanted to talk about why Insomniac isn't that good in the current way it's played. Um, a lot of Insomniac runners don't even front load a monument, which is I think if you're going for world record, you should reset for a monument on spawn at minimum. Um, but yeah, you're basically just backloading way too much stuff in Insomniac. If you're going for a record, you also want Ocean after your village in order to get exposed stronghold. Um, which is pretty much impossible to reset for. Um, from my own experience, I would say probably 1 in 20 of every monument you play in Insomniac will end up giving you a stand village. And after you get that, it's so much rarer for there to be ocean after the village. Um, if you play Insomniac, you probably know this. You'll almost always run out of ocean once you get to the village. Yeah, this is sort of just how Insomnia as a strategy works versus Double Day. When you're basically sorry um, basically in the middle of a Double Day run, the strategy is basically forcing a monument and a ravine to be somewhere probably around 1,000 blocks out. So you're forcing deep ocean in Double Day, and you're throwing an eye in deep ocean pretty much after you loot a monument or leave the nether through a ravine. Um, and that makes it so much more likely to be there for there to be an ocean exposed stronghold, which in general, ocean exposed strongholds are still really rare, even with double day giving you an advantage. Um, but yeah, Insomniac, since you're looking for a stand village, you're basically forcing there to be land somewhere in the middle of your run, like 1,000 blocks out too. Um, yeah, which is why you always see insomniac runners entering at a lava pool. Um, right. Yeah, this is also the sort of quirk of 1.15 that First Day Classic is somewhat comparable to Insomniac in terms of pace and like how good you can First Day Classic can be. Um, you can also sort of use looking at eye throws in First Day Classic too. And the fastest eye throw in First Day Classic is technically faster than Insomniac eye throws. Pingu had a 10:13 I threw, I think, a couple weeks ago with First Day Classic. Around 400 out, so not awful coordinates either. Um, yeah, it's basically you can basically say that First Day Classic is comparable to Insomniac, except it doesn't have ocean travel. But yeah, and First Day Classic is so much easier to reset for since a temple and a village with Brewing Sand off spawn is surprisingly common. Um, and it's much better for your reset efficiency since if you're just going through double day seeds or resetting for double day, you'll get a playable first day classic seed very often without like running through a desert or what you would normally do for a second day classic. Um, right, I guess there was even a run that Pingu had um, a while ago. I seem to remember it. Um, Yeah, there was another run where he threw his eye at 10xx, I think, that could have been a sub 15 dig down, or even a sub 14 dig down. Um, so yeah, it's kind of funny that First Day Classic, which is sort of an objectively bad strategy, is kind of comparable to Insomniac, and much less people are running for First Day Classic. Um, Pretty much, I would say only Pingu has been running it seriously, um, and he's able to compete with or he's able to get runs that are kind of similar to Insomniac runs. Um, all right, I guess I should talk about what I think the future of the category is. Um, yeah, so I feel like Ontricus is gonna get sub 15 or sub 16 soon. Hopefully it's sub 15. After a 15 or after a 14xx time happens, probably in mid 14, maybe in the low 14. Um, there's gonna be no incentive to run double day anymore, since at that point um, you're just playing for Dragon RNG. If you're going for sub 14 with double day, which is I would not advise, you would want to basically be trading above the stronghold at 12-12 multiple times before you're able to get a perch that's fast enough for sub 14. Since the fastest possible end enter with double day is pretty much 12:40. But yeah, after low 14 happens, there's a chance the category is dead. Since sub 14 is going to be so hard with Insomniac. Um, but if there's still people willing to go for a record, in my opinion, it's probably going to be through Insomniac, but with much better resetting, or Insomniac Hostage. The thing with how Insomniac is reset right now is that it's a, it's pretty bad. Um, one of the big problems with how Insomniac is reset is that, um, sorry, yeah, I feel like there's a lot more potential to front load resources. In an average Insomniac run nowadays, um, you're going to be spending 2, maybe 3 minutes in a village, which is also one of the reasons why Insomniac is sort of inefficient. Um, in a decent Insomniac seed, you'll use or you basically go through the seed a lot less efficiently than in a um, decent double day seed. In a decent double day seed, you won't spend too much time at any particular point. Um, versus Insomniac, where you're spending a ton of time in your village, just trying to get that extra M's for to be able to complete insomniac run. But yeah, I feel like um, mapless insomniac, where you're basically resetting for monument and mapless at spawn, might have some potential. This will probably require um, runner with a good PC to be able to do wall. Um, or maybe just resetting for a close shipwreck with a lot of emeralds. Um, and you will also probably want to reset if you don't see a village earlier. Um, remember Pingu said that it's probably a good idea to reset pretty soon after the village, and pretty soon after you leave the monument. Currently, insomniac resetters normally will um, reset at 5 minutes, I think, if they don't get a village. Um, and for sub 14, you probably want to reset 4 minutes, maybe in 3 minutes. Yeah, I don't know too much about how the meta might be. Just speculating at this point. Um, yeah, there's also Insomniac Hostage, which are basically playing for a really good coastal village. This is also going to be very reset heavy. It's sort of just how the category is. There's not too many seeds that sub 14 is possible on. But yeah, I would say probably reset for sub 3 leave with front load and good coordinates. Um, Another idea is to reset for uh, 24 emerald front load, in which case you want to leave the village around 3 minutes, maybe as low 3 or high 2. But yeah, that might be a pretty big pain. Oh, and you also need a stand for that. Um, we have some ideas for Insomniac Hostage. Um, you want to get the monument pretty quickly, probably around 5 minutes. You want to start trading around 5 minutes. Um, there's some bonus restock ideas. Not sure how viable those will be. Um, and you can also do double monument with bonus restock. But yeah, and benefit of Sonic Hostage is that it's so much easier to reset for than it's an ordinary Insomniac run. Since you front load a lot of stuff at your village. Um, the other thing with Insomniac Hostage is that it's only really better than normal double day if it can bypass or if it can go faster than the double day floor, which there have been no seeds, no double day seeds currently rolled that anyone's been waiting above the stronghold at like 12 minutes or 11:30, 11 minutes. So yeah, it might be too difficult to get that. Might be impossible even, just because of how you're limited by boat travel. Um, yeah, I think that I don't know if I have anything else to say. Um, I don't know if sub 14 will happen, to be honest. I don't think. I think it's too difficult, to be honest. But yeah, I feel like just in general, Insomniac was way too ahead of its time, and even if you say that, I feel like there was never really a time for Insomniac. Um, it was thought of. Insomniac was developed March of last year, when um, record was only 17 minutes, which at this point, um, I mean, it should have been obvious, but hostage strats could have gone much further than 17 minutes. Um, I feel like Insomniac getting developed that early was a bit premature, especially since second place was only 19 minutes. Um, but yeah, anytime between 14 and 20 minutes. Since in March of 2021, they had 3 more minutes to go before the second day trading limit. Um, yeah, I feel like it was just way too early. Um, yeah, I guess that's about all I wanted to say. Um, Hopefully this helped. If Since I feel like people don't know the meta too well, how pace works. Um, so yeah, see ya.